What's going on out there? I'm your host, Talking Face, and this could be news brought to you by Royal Family Studios. Now, people, at first, I just made jokes about CNN and just said that they were just fake news and they don't know what they're talking about. I'm really concerned about 3 specific anchors on CNN and probably the whole staff entirely. They lost their minds. Brian Stelter, Don Lemon, and Chris Cuomo have always been vocal about their animosity towards President Trump and this administration. But they're literally losing it on television. First example is Don Lemon, because he's a peach.
You're slapping the faces of the people who are the healthcare workers who put their lives on the line every day because you want a haircut, you want to go play golf, you're concerned about, of course you're concerned about your business. Tell the president that. And you're out there with guns, with weapons strapped to your chest, saying, oh, you want to get, you're fighting against the people who are telling you to stay at home, trying to save your lives. You're upset with those people. In the meantime, there are people who are keeping your cities going, keeping your loved ones alive, and you want to get a haircut? Who the hell do you think you are?
No, Mr. Lemon, it is not because of haircuts. People want the economy back open because they're feeling the effects of it. Unemployment has skyrocketed to 30 million? People are waiting in line at food banks who never would have thought to use a food bank. And it's kind of insensitive for you to say that. No, everybody does not have a cushy news anchor job at the worst news source around besides the New York Times. Everyone can't be Don Lemon. And it's funny how you said it's ultimately up to the president, but then your co-worker, Brian Stelter, when he was losing his mind, he had something different to say. Brian Stelter is married to a woman. Don't get it twisted.
Despite the faulty story President Trump is telling, because that's ultimately what he does at these near-daily briefings, the former reality show star tells a story about American resilience. What he lacks in empathy for the dead, he makes up for in his insistence that the country will come back stronger than ever. Now, all self-promoters are good storytellers, and Trump might be the best of them all. He is the hero of his own story. So my advice is, don't fall for the frame President Trump is offering. Right now, he's trying to portray himself as the decider-in-chief, saying his decision about when and how to reopen the economy is the biggest decision of his life. But it's not really up to him. This Real Clear Politics headline is the problem. It just takes Trump's word for it. Reopening the economy, the biggest decision of my life. See the frame there? It's framed around Trump. That's the wrong frame.
Well, we just learned that it's actually not up to Trump. It's up to the governors. So, CNN viewers, should y'all listen to Brian Stelter or Don Lemon? And what's even funnier is that CNN anchors, like how Brian Stelter was just doing, explains to you about the press briefings, telling you that it's just a big infomercial, that Trump is lying, he's just being a storyteller. But yet, they're like the only news organization that won't air the whole thing. They won't even air any of it, because at those press conferences, Trump is giving valuable information. And not just Trump, but experts as well. Then we get to Chris Cuomo of CNN. Now, he already released the cringiest video that was overproduced, overacted throughout the whole thing when he, quote unquote, first emerged from his quarantine in his basement, which we know was a lie. But he got on television and had this to say.
People are doing amazing things all the time to help other people during this pandemic. My frustration is we need that from our leaders as well. That desperate times, desperate measures, doing what you can. We're seeing it in people. We're seeing it in our healthcare workers. We're not seeing it with the urgency that we need to from our leaders yet. And that's what worries me about what the CDC had said tonight.
Oh, that's it's a little interesting, especially since your older brother, Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, the smarter Cuomo, he's the governor of the state of New York. Now, I know that New York became the epicenter for this disease in America, but leadership has been pretty good at handling this and responding well. Even your brother had that to say, because he doesn't even need nearly as many supplies as he thought he did because of how leadership was working. Honestly, all this is only because the simple fact that a few states decided to open up. One in particular is Georgia. Now, for some reason, the New York Times and other news outlets want to compare Georgia to New York, but it's not the same thing. New Yorkers are stacked on top of each other. In Georgia, we're spread out a little bit more. And plus, the one thing that y'all was talking about was getting testing. Testing was done. The red line is the people who got tested. The blue line is the people who turned out positive. Notice this great gap between them two? People are kind of funny because they actually believe that Brian Kemp is just forcing everybody to leave their house and go out in the open and go hug each other with their mask off and everything like that. But he's not. If people actually reported the news correctly, you would see that there would still be restrictions. And businesses cannot meet those restrictions, they won't open. Use your head, people. Stop letting everyone try to scare you. You're an adult. You should be able to keep a cool head, especially in these times. But what do you think? Do you think all states need to stay shut down and we don't need to open the economy yet because the coronavirus is still out there and we need to eradicate it completely before we go outside, even though we still have to deal with the common cold? Or do you think CNN needs to shut up, stop trying to freak everybody out constantly, and we need to get back to work so we can make America great again? I'm your host, Talking Face, Royal Family Studios. This could be news. Peace. Also, like, share, and subscribe to the channel.